Welcome to another edition of All Octaves with me, Val Kleinhans, where we chat with music fans and musicians that make the music we love. Today, Evgeniy with Red Cain is here. Red Cain is a powerful melodic metal project with European roots, known for intricate storytelling and ambient elements, paired with heavy technical guitar work and a rich, epic musical presence. That's a lot. I cannot wait. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here.
It's fantastic to be here. Thanks for having me on the show.
I know.
Looking
Well,
forward to it.
yes, my favorite line in the bio on your website is the one that says the current incarnation of this Canadian metal band is one of these influences mixed with a lot of vodka and European melancholy, shaken and stirred. Now, I've got to ask, what is Eastern European melancholy?
That's what happens when you drink too much vodka and then
Okay.
you write your bio.
You're right.
Yes. I think Eastern Europe isn't a particularly comfortable place, and it's not really a happy place a lot of the
Mm,
time. So the melancholy kind of comes with the territory, especially if you live in Russia, Finland. Those are countries that are very well known for that. But it generates a lot of fantastic creative content. So
yeah, I
that's
would
why we pride
imagine.
ourselves on. Yeah.
Yeah. So, did music become your creative outlet to get through some of that?
I wouldn't quite say it's that extreme. No, I mean I was brought up in a fairly comfortable environment, but I think in general, to you channel it.
Mhm.
My family has a history of music. My mother's a musician, my grandfather's a musician, and so taking kind of that spirit from them, you bring in a lot of historical melancholy. Um, and I think that drives itself through the music, at least from where I come from. But it's nice. I mean, it's a powerful creative force. I wouldn't quite say it's something like emo,
Yeah.
but but right, like it's not that. It's just you view the world through a set of different lenses a little bit.
Yeah. With maybe a
Yeah,
more sardonic, dry sense of humor, for sure.
you got it. Yeah,
Okay.
something like that. Yeah.
Well, so did your parents have an influence on you musically? Did they show you any music? Did they teach you any instruments?
My mother's a classical piano teacher, yeah. So she forced me to learn piano against
Oh,
my better judgment and will and everything else. But honestly, it was a good decision. Yeah, I wouldn't be here if she didn't. So all credit to her.
yeah. And you and I have something else in common. We're both Symphony X fans. I've seen them at least 3 times in concert live. Love them so much.
Fuck
Love
yeah,
Michael Romeo and his talent. Russell Allen can get drunk as shit and still sound perfect. I've seen it.
yeah, yeah. He's actually one of the first influences that I had for vocals when I first started getting into music as a vocalist, and specifically into metal. Russell Allen. It was like I think Paradise Lost was their album when I was really like, holy shit, okay,
Yeah,
this
yeah.
is an influence. Yeah. Serpent's Kiss is still one of my favorite songs by them, and he just goes to town in that track. Like he just drank a fifth of vodka and smoked 10 cigarettes. It still
Yeah.
sounds amazing. So, yeah, they're a great band. I saw them in Calgary as well. They killed it. They're still good. They'll always be good.
Yeah. Who else do you think maybe impacts the music of Red Cane?
I have to say Camelot. We always kind of shove them at the forefront as our influence, but again, from a vocalist perspective, Roy Khan was my top three for a long time. Probably still is, even though my horizons have expanded. But
Mhm.
uh, yeah, I know every Camelot album by heart, especially the ones with him, and I've tried to sing a lot of the songs, and I was learning how to sing, so I had to give him some credit. They really invented a lot of what I personally love about power metal and symphonic power metal, and they brought the edge with their kind of stinger sound that they had that they really popularized at
Right.
that point. And of course, the conceptual piece, the stories they told in their songs really captured me. At that point, I was like, fuck yeah, metal, super heavy, great vocals, etc. But then you really start to get into the myth around what they're building in the album. And that triple album of theirs with Karma, Epica, and Black Halo was just out of this world. I didn't know before that point you could have a 3 album concept arc
Yeah.
and they just absolutely nailed it. So huge influence. And Roy Khan still remains, I think, probably one of the vocalists that I'd most want to collaborate with if the chance presented itself.
Yeah. They're they're using that as a trilogy, that just that method, with that method in mind. I know that sort of inspired the way you've done your own album layouts with Red
Mm-hmm.
Cain as well. Maybe it's a little bit Lord of the Rings inspired, maybe it's a little bit Wheel of Time inspired. Like I love all of it. So is there any truth to that?
I think to an extent, yeah. I've always been tempted by doing a concept art like that. So I'm not gonna lie, it was influencing my stuff that I wrote, and the way we structured the music. But it also kind of naturally lent itself to it, I think, because when we were writing the songs, and this was when the first Kindred album was first forming as an idea, we were like, well, holy shit, we have like this interesting story. We've got this interesting story with, Wing of the Crow, which was one of the defining ones there with
Yes.
Kobra Paige, Over in the Lotus. And we had all these cool, I think at that point we had some story arcs in mind. They weren't as ambitious. The album was, I think, 2 or 3 songs in. And then we realized that we were writing something that was converging to a single conceptual, you know, apex, if you want to call it. So at that point, I sat down and I was like, okay, we need to actually flesh this out into something bigger than what it was. And so I pulled a ton of influences. I'm a huge mythology fan, but I'm also I'm a grim dark fan, like gothic anything plus Warhammer, all that kind of stuff, right? Like, so that was a lot of influence there. And then of course I pulled a ton of stuff from Slavic mythology, which is something that I grew up with and I've always wanted to write about. And it was nice because around the same time you had The Witcher coming out with
Yeah, yeah.
Witcher 3, and it was just like this whole conglomeration of things that fell together. It was really cool the way it materialized.
What was it like working with Cobra? Because she's one of my favorites too.
She was honestly one of the humblest people that I've met, and
Yeah.
it was really easy. She was at the top of the list for that track, and not because she's obviously Calgary local, and I've seen her live before, and obviously I love her voice, and she's a fantastic artist. But we had a short list, and at that point we were still a very small band, and so we didn't really expect to get a response. And we reached out to a couple of the people on our short list, and we got a couple of responses that were kind of here and there. But with Cobra, she was immediately like, "Okay, uh, let's do it." And I was like, "Oh shit, okay." So then we had a conversation. We met up with her actually, and we talked through it. And she was super interested in the concept. She was really interested in the song dynamics. She already had suggestions about what she could do, and it was actually cool because the demo that I sent her and the sample ended up changing, not quite a bit, but she definitely elevated what was written there
Mm.
already. And with her voice, it was only clearly a step up from what I had in mind. So the entire experience, start to finish, was super smooth, and I'd love to work with her again. We became pretty decent friends and talked a lot about everything. And obviously, being from Calgary and the same kind of musical upbringing here, and whatever you want to call this, the Canadian cauldron. Yeah, we had a lot in common. So yeah, awesome experience overall.
That helps. That paints a picture for me too, like as an American, because when we think Canadian metal, I think we don't know so much about like the Plains bands or the West Coast bands. In
Mm-hmm.
Canada, we know more about like Cataclysm or Rush or like stuff like on the eastern side. So
Yeah, the eastern side for sure. Mm-hmm.
yeah, you're teaching me right now. Like for anybody else that wants to get into other parts of Canadian metal, what would you recommend? Who would you recommend?
Uh, you know what? We just had the YC Music Awards yesterday that showcased a lot of Canadian talent, and some of the
Yeah.
bands there for um, that were nominated with us are really good friends of ours. The scene is really tight, especially in metal. A few names that I'm gonna throw out is the Siren. They're really good friends of ours. We work together a lot. They're kind of a Canadian conceptually centric power prog band. They tell a lot of Canadian stories, which is very cool. They just went on an American tour as well, so they're working really hard and are fantastic guys. They're representing Canada really well. They're a good one. One of my really good friends here locally is Sasha Lasko, who used to be in Divinity. He's got his own project now, Every Hour Kills. I always call him the godfather of Calgary metal because he really is. He's got like years of experience in all of this, and honestly, I go to him a lot of the time to see what he thinks about this stuff. Like, I remember the very first time I started writing one of our songs for our EP. I came to him with a demo, and I was like, "Hey, can you help me figure this out and mix this and stuff?" And he was just like, "Get the fuck out of here! This is garbage. come, come back when you've got something that's actually worthwhile." And funny enough, that song that I wrote turned out to be Kindred, which is the title track of
Okay.
our that whole 2 album series. So yeah, I did the job. I made it a good song.
So what did it take to earn his trust? Just coming back with better material.
Persistence. Yeah,
Persistence.
persistence.
Okay.
Also, some of that Eastern European melancholy, probably, which really was ramped up when he told me that my music sucked. So
You're like, oh, I've heard this before. That doesn't bother me. I can move on.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, he's a great guy. We're good friends, and we laugh at each other's expense all the time.
Well, how did you meet everybody else that's in Red Cain?
We've had a lot of people come through the band, honestly. Like, we're like the farm team almost that sends people out to other
Yeah.
places. We've had a core. I guess the core of the band never changed, but there's been different things. The original iteration for our EP was myself and a few of my good friends who I'm still friends with, and one of them actually is now in the band, Andre Boldan, who's a fantastic guitarist and really good friend of mine. But yeah, at that point, it was kind of a thing where I thought I was ready. I found the people around me that I thought were the greatest musicians I could pull on such short notice, and I was like, we have to fucking do an EP. And everybody was like, oh well, we should practice first. We should just like do a couple of shows. And I was like, no, like that's past. Like this is like small shit. We need to actually release something, and then we can support it. And so luckily, they were able to be convinced, and we'd release the EP. After that, it was kind of we started knowing people in the scene, so it was fairly. It was easier to pull somebody who was already seen you live. One of our ex-guitarists, actually, Noah, was at a Red Cain show, and he knew all the words to like half the fucking songs. So after the show, I was like, "Hey, do you want to play guitar?" And we're like in a transitional phase because one of our other guitarists was leaving for Nashville to pursue his music career there. So he stepped in for a while. It was really good. And honestly, it's the camaraderie in the scene. Like, the one thing about the Western Canadian metal scene is that it's very tight. You know the people. It's not expansive by any means, but the people that are there are the ones that have persisted, the ones that have talent, and we do tend to lean on each other quite heavily. So that's why you see a lot of rotation between the bands and sharing responsibilities, etc. So yeah, a lot of the people that we worked with and eventually ended up on a band kind of came along that route.
Yeah, got it. Well, so some of your music does include some fantasy themes as well. I know you're fans of Wheel of Time, Lord of the Rings. Your most recent album definitely proves that for sure. Do you feel like fantasy and mythology themes sort of like go hand in hand with metal? What made you feel like it was a good fit to use as material to write with?
I mean, the thing with metal is that you can do anything. You can do any kind of themes. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm honestly not a massive fan of the ultra fantasy metal themes. There's some fantastic bands that do that kind of stuff for sure. I think the pinnacle for me still is like Blind Guardian, Nightfall, Middle Earth.
Yes.
Like, definitely. But I think they do go hand in hand. But I think it takes a clever approach, because you don't want to go to the full extreme into some uber power metal extra fantasy sort of land, unless that is exactly what you're aiming for. And so, in my opinion, I always kind of dilute it with a lot of grimdark influences, some really less fantastic, more down to earth elements, and then we always try to pull some stuff from reality, in a sense that we want the songs to reflect what's currently going on in the world, what's our real life experiences have been, because otherwise it's I find it doesn't resonate as well with both ourselves as musicians, and you want to be authentic, of course, and also with the fans, because I think the fans, the ultimate objective that you have is to write a track where anybody who's listening can interpret it in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
And if you do too much fantasy, then there's only one interpretation, as fantastic as it may be. So for me, it's always been trying to combine the two and leave enough room, because we respect the listeners. They've got also fantastic imaginations. They're individuals. We want to give them the room to breathe and kind of digest the music as they see fit.
Yeah. So it's either that or then you become a band sort of like Amon Amarth, where the Viking thing is your thing and that's what you're known for. And I love Amon Amarth.
Yeah,
Like
and
there's
I love them when I'm off too.
yeah. So you
Yeah,
sort of maybe make that choice as a band. Do you want it to be rigid like that, or do you want it to be a little bit more free flowing like you guys do?
yeah. And it also depends where you are in the band too in your life cycle. I think for us, like we just wanted to experiment during the Kindred arc. We were like, okay, well, let's create some mythology. Let's put in a bunch of stuff. Let's see what happens, and just push that out. I think eventually, though, if you do find a niche that fits
Mm-hmm.
for you, that is absolutely fine for you to just like hammer home that niche. And we may still do that. Who knows? Like there's like the Eastern mythology angle is really cool. There's still so much
Yeah.
untapped potential there. So
Yeah.
I don't think
I
we're
don't
going to be going away from that anytime soon.
no, I would love to learn because I really don't know a lot about Eastern European mythology at all. I know a little bit about Norse
Mhm.
mythology, but I'm gonna guess it's probably not the same thing, or you have your own twists on those stories and your own gods,
Yeah,
maybe.
we do. We do.
Yeah.
There's a lot of really cool shit there. Yeah, yeah. I mean, okay, The Witcher popularized it a lot, and
Oh,
they're
okay.
obviously bringing stuff really authentic. It's the Slavic mythology that's in The Witcher is really a piece of the larger whole that's across the entirety of Eastern Europe. So it is The Witcher is like a gateway drug if you wanna go into that
Got it.
direction.
Okay. I love your
Mm-hmm.
music videos too. To me, I was watching them on YouTube. They're like mini movies. So I wanted to ask,
Yeah,
think it takes to make a good music video because you're obviously put a lot of time into them.
yeah. I mean, we're lucky enough to work with some really good professionals. Um, the two guys that film for us, Rick, Zach, and Zach Simon are fantastic. So what we've been able to do is try to leverage the skills that they have to like put on a big budget production with a smaller budget that's
Mm-hmm.
actually coming out of our pocket. It's really interesting too because obviously a lot of bands at our level and like locally don't have a ton of money, so we have to improvise, and that improvisation sometimes yields a lot of really cool results. With us, we're also lucky enough to get funded by Alberta Foundation for the Arts and a couple of other organizations, so we can
Oh,
throw a little bit more money around, I guess, comparatively. So a couple of the videos we did have a fairly big budget. But really the idea always was to do something very cinematic, like tell the actual story, um, use the highest available level of skill set, directing, et cetera, and then try to include that in mythology behind the album. So that's exactly what we did, and we tested them on the world stage, I guess, if you want to say, because through Rick Zach, who was our director, we entered them in a ton of like video festivals, film festivals around the world,
oh, cool.
and I think we ended up winning like 18 awards for Juliet and Zero, which were the two main ones. And it was actually fantastic because we went as far as there's a couple of film festivals in Tokyo, there's a few in LA and elsewhere in the US that we were participating in. There's a big one in Toronto where we also landed an award. So the exposure from that was actually really, really good. And we had people writing in saying, "Oh, I saw your video. Like, what is the story about? Like, tell me more." And I was like, "Yeah, listen to the album. You'll probably figure it out. I mean, if you don't, come back," sort of thing. So, um, plus the experience in general filming music videos, I think, is core to being a musician. Because you're playing on stage, you're also acting in a different way, but music video really forces you to put the visuals to the music,
Mhm.
and try to get another layer on top of that. There's a reason why music videos are so popular, and every band who knows their worth will do them and hopefully do them well. So we plan to do many more.
Yeah. So it's another way to tell the story. It's another way to share
Yeah,
the music with the world.
Yeah, yeah,
I love that. So what's
yeah.
next for
Thank you.
you? What's next for the band? What can we look forward to?
Yeah, so we're in an interesting transitional period right now because we have set our sights in Europe. Um, we have been collaborating with a couple of European PR companies and in discussions with some labels. And we're for this album that we just released. Basically, the idea was to it was a passion project, effectively.
Mhm.
The Wheel of Time piece was something that I've been sitting on for like 10 years.
Mm.
Because I've read The Wheel of Time, I think 3 times at this point, and it was one of the first series I read when I came to Canada and I was learning English.
Oh,
So it had a special place for me, and I was like, I have to fucking write some music for it because nobody else is doing it, right? So um, there's not much out there, frankly. There's one fantastic album by I forgot the name, but it's like the only Wheel of Time album that was done like 10 years ago by this one guy, and he had yeah. Anyway, so we did the the Wheel of Time album was kind of a thing we'd been sitting on conceptually for a while, and we're like, okay, we have a new lineup. We had a new guitarist, Sam, who joined just for this album, who's a fantastic addition. I love what he brings to the table. And so after COVID too, right after all the stuff where everybody was kind of apart, we were able to get into the studio and just I just said, fuck it, like we'll put together whatever comes out, and then we'll see what happens,
yeah.
basically. So that's the experience we aimed for. That's the experience, honestly, that we got. So pretty happy with that. And then we trialed some collaborations, with his European partners, and I think that first step was really well done. So now, or the results were really well that we got from them. Sorry. So now the next step is we're doing another album next year. It's already kind of started. We've got a couple of tracks that we've been working on, and then the idea is that we do a lot more live performances, and we try to set up a couple of tours. So it's still quite far away from that, but we're kind of building the foundations for it because we've played live a few times since the pandemic, but really like we want to go out there old fashioned and make bands.
Mhm.
So yeah,
Yeah. We'd love to see you in the US too. I would love to see that someday.
yeah, we'd love to go to the US. Yeah, again, our good friends at Zayarny just came back from a US tour and they had nothing but positive things to say. So yeah,
Yeah.
looking forward
We're
to it.
we felt the pinch with the pandemic too. Like we were when all the
Mhm.
shows started opening up, we were like we were ready to go.
Yeah.
Everybody was crazy, everybody was moshing, like we were ready.
Oh yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. We still have that. We just got a few venues closed down, which is obviously a
Mm.
side effect that's unfortunate, but I think everything is very close to returning back to normal at this point, even in Canada.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you so
Hmm.
much for hanging out with me. Thank you for sharing everything exciting with Red Cain. We can't wait to see it
Absolutely.
all.
Thank you very much, Val. I appreciate it.